So I was initially drawn to this sonnet because of the first section where Shakespeare talks about the artist struggle. The artist always trying to invent something new or create something that's never been created before, when there's also this idea that everything's already been done. So it's more about how you repurpose things or rephrase things. And so then he goes on to talk about the subject of his art, where he wants to go back 500 years where the subject was first written about, because if everything's already been done, this subject has already been focused upon as well. So he goes back and he's like, I wonder how you were described in the old days, the old world, and have we fixed it? Are we better now, or were they better back then and we've fallen off the charts, or is everything just the same? But then in the couplet at the very end, he wraps everything up, and he assures you that there has never been a subject that is better than this one in this sonnet, how all of the other subjects have been worse regardless of who might be writing about them. So I really am drawn to that. One thing about this sonnet in particular, I think it's a really good example of where punctuations and end of phrases can really help guide the text and help you interpret the text, where it's set up, usually like a phrase would be a complete phrase, but this one starts off, if there be nothing new but that which is. So it's not the complete phrase, but it stops on a very specific moment. It stops on that word is. But that which is, it is now. And then it goes on to the first part of the next phrase, hath been before. Hath been before. If that which is, hath been before. Everything that is now has already been before. And so that's a place where you can really take that moment of pause, even though there's not a punctuation mark there, to help guide the emphasis of those words. It's also really useful at the commas to pause to see where that thought is taking place, to see where that breath is. I always use that when I'm first interpreting the text of Shakespeare. So if there is nothing new, comma, but that which is, end of phrase, hath been before, comma, how are our brains beguiled? And that's the thought. And then it goes on to say, because laboring for invention bears amiss the second burden of a former child. So it goes on like that, and then it ends that phrase with an exclamation point, which is always very exciting to see in text. But I think that's a really good place to start. It's also super important to hear the text out loud. When you're just sitting there reading it, I know it can get confusing sometimes, but once you hear the words, you realize like how much is really brought to you. Because I mean, it is poetry, and when you hear the lyrics to a song the first time, you're not going to pick up on every single nuance. But once you start to listen to it and get more accustomed to the sound of it, you realize like how much you're absorbing the message of it. Even if you don't know every specific word in that, you can always look it up in the lexicon. But that's why I think it's just so important to hear the word of Shakespeare, to hear the text, to really start to learn it, as well as seeing it on stage. Being able to see performers act it out really helps distinguish different characters from one another, and having the different voices in your ears so you can get the dialogue back and forth. But that's kind of going into a deeper Shakespeare conversation there. But yeah, Sonnet 59, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. If there be nothing new, but that which is, hath been before, how are our brains beguiled, which, laboring for invention, bears amiss the second burthen of a former child? Oh, that record could, with a backward look, even of 500 courses of the sun, show me your image in some antique book, since mine at first in character was done, that I might see what the old world could say to this composed wonder of your frame. whether we are mended, or we're better they, or whether revolution be the same. Oh, sure I am the wits of former days to subjects worse have given admiring praise.